The note inside the box simply read, "You shouldn't have lied about your sister." I've always had a twisted sense of curiosity, the kind that makes you click links you know you shouldn't. That keeps you scrolling late at night through the darkest corners of the internet when your instincts are telling you to stop. So when a friend half-jokingly dared me to buy a mystery box from the dark web, I didn't hesitate. I wasn't expecting anything real. I mean, let's be honest, most of the YouTube videos are fake, filled with old dolls, ketchup-stained shirts, and jump cuts to build tension. I thought maybe I'd waste a few $100 on trash, get a good laugh, maybe even record it myself. What I didn't expect, what I couldn't have expected, was that something would come for me. I found the listing on one of those encrypted forums you have to access with a specific invite code. It was buried beneath the usual clutter: fake passports, hacked credit cards, questionable services. The listing wasn't flashy at all, just a black screen with a single line of white text that read, "For the curious who think they resafe." There were no images, no description, no seller information. It cost $500 in Bitcoin, and it required a physical address. To stay safe, I used a P.O. box and a burner email, completed the transaction, and assumed I'd either get nothing at all or receive a box filled with garbage. A week later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. There was no greeting, no name, not even a number signature. Just a short message that said, "It's there." I already had a knot forming in my stomach when I drove to the post office. Sure enough, sitting in the box was a beat-up cardboard package sealed with brittle brown tape. The thing looked like it had been passed around for years. There were no shipping labels, no company logos, only my full name scrawled across the top in blocky, crooked letters and a single black fingerprint smudged near the edge of the lid. I brought it home and sat with it for almost half an hour, just staring. I don't know what I was expecting exactly, but it wasn't what I found inside. It wasn't filled with garbage, and it wasn't a joke. It felt personal, as if someone had gone out of their way to dig through my memories and pick objects that would strike at something I hadn't touched in years. The first item was a pink plastic hospital bracelet, the kind they give to kids. It was scratched and faded, but I knew immediately what it was. My sister used to wear one just like that during her treatments. She was 8 years old when she died. I hadn't seen that bracelet in over a decade, and I was certain it had been thrown away with the rest of her things. But somehow, here it was in my hands again. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. Beneath the bracelet was a diner napkin, white, with a red logo printed on it, the kind they used in the town I grew up in. It even had the same faint brown ring from a coffee cup, like someone had placed it down in the middle of a late-night conversation. On the back of the napkin, written in a childlike scrawl, were the words, "You shouldn't have left her in the car." My body went cold. My mouth went dry. That wasn't something anyone should know, something I had never told anyone, not even the police. The night my sister died, I had left her sleeping in the car to run inside the store. I told everyone I was only gone for a moment. I lied. I had been gone longer than I should have, just long enough for something irreversible to happen. The official cause was a seizure, sudden and unavoidable. But in the dark, ugly corners of my mind, I've always wondered if I could have stopped it. My hands were trembling when I reached for the last item, a small, old-school voice recorder. It was dusty, with a cracked edge, but it had a working battery and a single button, play. Against every rational impulse in my brain, I pressed it. At first there was just static, low and fuzzy, like the hum of a dying TV. Then I heard breathing. Slow, shallow breathing. Then a voice, soft, childlike, unmistakably familiar, whispered my name. Jake. I waited. I dropped the recorder, but it kept playing even as it bounced across the floor and landed by the fridge. The voice grew clearer, more deliberate, and what it said next will never leave me. I waited for you. At that exact moment, 3 sharp knocks hit my front door. The sound echoed through my apartment like a gunshot. I didn't move. My body refused to respond. I live on the second floor of a locked building. No one can get to my door without being buzzed in. The knocks came again, slower this time, deliberate and heavy. I grabbed my phone with a shaky hand and dialed 911. As I whispered to the dispatcher, I realized the room had gone utterly silent. No traffic sounds, no refrigerator hum, not even the voice recorder, which had finally gone dead. The operator kept asking if I was okay, but I couldn't speak. I was staring at my door, which had begun to slowly creak open. I know for a fact that I had locked it. The police arrived 13 minutes later. They found nothing, no intruder, no sign of forced entry, not even fingerprints on the doorknob. I showed them the box and its contents, but they dismissed it all as an elaborate prank. They took the items for evidence, but I could tell by the look on their faces that they didn't believe a word I said. I left town the next morning. New place, new number, no more encrypted browsers or dark web curiosity. I was done. At least I thought I was. Last night, another package arrived. Smaller than the last. No label, no address, no stamp. Just my name written across the top in the same shaky handwriting. Inside was a single USB stick. I haven't plugged it in yet. I don't know if I ever will. But written across the front of it, in that same childlike script, were 3 simple words. We're not done. And the truth is, neither am I, because now I know someone is watching. I never ordered anything, and yet I woke up to find a small, unmarked cardboard box sitting neatly on my knitstand. The corners perfectly squared, the tape sealed like it had been handled with care. It was 3:03 in the morning, and the moment I saw it, I felt a jolt of confusion followed by a slow, creeping unease. I live alone. My apartment is locked up every night. There's a chain on the door, a deadbolt, even a motion-activated camera facing the hallway. Nothing had triggered it. No alerts, no sounds, no footsteps. And yet, here was this box delivered somehow, silently, in the middle of the night, placed inches from my head as I slept. My first instinct was denial. I told myself maybe I had ordered something and forgotten. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe I picked it up from the mailbox the day before and just didn't remember. But when I examined the box closer, I realized how unlikely that was. There was no postage, no label, no barcode. Just my full name written in sharp black marker, each letter tall and slightly slanted, like someone had written it carefully with gloves on. I stared at it for a long time, debating whether to open it. Curiosity eventually won. Inside was a single item, a small flash drive, wedged tightly into a foam lining that made it look like a piece of expensive jewelry. There was no note, no explanation. Nothing else at all, just a flash drive, black and unmarked, sitting in that little coffin of fabric like it was waiting for me. I sat on my bed for a long time, weighing the decision. I'd spent plenty of time on the dark web in the past, not to buy anything, not to do anything illegal, but just out of that morbid curiosity so many of us have. I'd browsed shady forums and creepy marketplaces, even stumbled across a post a week ago titled, "Don't open this if you want to be safe." It was vague and cryptic, like most of them. There was no product image, no price listed, just an open request for an address and a warning that once you received what they sent, you couldn't send it back. I never submitted my information. At least I didn't think I had. Still, when I plugged the drive into my laptop, I half expected it to do nothing, or worse, infect my system. But there was just one file inside, a move video with no title. The thumbnail was pitch black, and the file had no metadata, no creation date, no size, no information about where it had come from. Against every rational thought in my mind, I clicked play. The footage was grainy and low resolution, almost like it was recorded on an old security camera. It showed a bedroom, not mine, but close enough to make my skin crawl. The walls were the same bland beige, the bedding plain and crumpled. The bed was empty, but the indentation on the pillow suggested someone had just gotten up. For the first 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then a man walked into frame. He was tall and thin, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood pulled low over his head. His face wasn't visible, either blurred out or hidden in shadows. He stood at the foot of the bed and stared at it silently, unmoving, for a solid 15 seconds. Then, slowly, he turned and looked directly into the camera. I felt a chill go down my spine as he raised his hand and waved. I slammed the laptop shut. My entire body was tense. The room felt colder, like the air had changed. I stood up and checked every lock in the apartment, every window, every closet. Nothing was out of place, but that feeling, that unbearable sense of being seen, was still clinging to me like wet clothing. My instincts were screaming that this wasn't a prank. It wasn't a joke. Someone had recorded that video for me. Eventually, I sat back down and opened the laptop again, too shaken to ignore it. I played the video from the start, hoping I had imagined it, but it was all the same, until something new happened. Right after the man waved, the screen glitched, and for less than half a second, a new image flashed on screen. A screenshot of me, sitting at my desk, watching the video. My mouth was open, my hands hovering near the keyboard captured in perfect clarity. I hadn't even noticed the webcam light was on. I jumped up so fast my chair nearly flipped. My skin was burning with panic. I turned the camera off, yanked the flash drive out of the port, and threw it back into the box. I took the whole thing outside and tossed it into the dumpster behind my building. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the walls, every shifting shadow made my heart race. I kept imagining that man standing outside my window, watching, waiting. The next morning, I woke up groggy and disoriented, my head pounding from lack of sleep. As I stumbled into the bedroom, my eyes landed on something that made my knees go weak. The box was back. Same size, same markings, same flash drive sitting neatly inside. But this time there were 2 video files. I opened the second one with trembling hands. It was shorter, barely 20 seconds long, but it chilled me even deeper than the first. The camera this time was positioned in a hallway, angled perfectly toward the front door of my apartment. The footage was from the middle of the night. The man in the hoodie was standing right outside my door. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't trying to come in. He was just standing there, completely still, his head tilted slightly, like he was listening for something. For me, I called the police. They arrived within 20 minutes, took my statement, walked around the building, and asked the usual questions. Did I have enemies? Had I been involved in anything suspicious? Was it possible a friend was playing a prank? I told them everything, but when I tried to show them the videos, the files wouldn't open. They were corrupted. The drive wouldn't even register anymore. I knew how that sounded, crazy, paranoid, like I was making the whole thing up, but the fear I felt was real. I replaced the locks that afternoon, added a second chain, installed cameras, and moved all my furniture to block the windows. That night, I didn't sleep again. I kept my lights on, phone in hand, sitting on the floor with my back against the wall and a kitchen knife in my lap. At exactly 3:03 a.m., I woke up. I hadn't meant to fall asleep, but I must have dozed off. Something had woken me. It was the sound of breathing. Not from the hallway, not from the street. It was coming from inside the room. My eyes adjusted slowly in the dim light, and there in the far corner, barely visible, was the outline of a figure, still and silent, watching me. I don't know how long we stared at each other. I don't know if it moved. Eventually, I passed out again, and when I opened my eyes in the morning, the room was empty. But there was a faint, lingering smell of cigarettes in the air. I don't smoke. I moved out 2 days later. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. Got a new phone, a new number, a new email, everything. I deleted every trace of my dark web activity and threw the laptop away. For a while, I thought it was over. Until last week, another box arrived. No return address, just my name. Inside was another flash drive. Another video. This time the footage was of my new bedroom, and I was asleep. At the very end, just before the video cuts to black, the man leans over the camera, his face still hidden by that same hoodie, and whispers something directly into the mic. Next time, leave your laptop open. Then he smiled. And I don't know how long he's been watching, but I know now I was never supposed to open that first package, because now, no matter where I go, he always finds me. When I moved into that apartment, I wasn't thinking long term. It was cheap. It was close to campus, and the guy who posted the listing counter seemed normal enough during the 5-minute tour he gave me. The place was a little outdated, and the hallway had a permanent musty smell, but for $450 a month, I didn't complain. We weren't exactly best friends, but he was polite, kept to himself, paid rent on time, and we mostly stayed out of each other's way. It was the kind of arrangement that worked perfectly until the night I saw the door. It started with the sounds. Late at night, sometimes around 2 or 3 a.m., I'd hear something through the thin wall we shared between our rooms. At first I chalked it up to him watching TV, 2 loud, low, murmuring voices, like a news broadcast or documentary. But one night I realized it wasn't coming from speakers. There was no rise or fall in volume, no music or commercials, just soft, steady talking. Except it wasn't a conversation, it was one voice, repeating the same words over and over. Too quiet for me to make out, but rhythmic, unsettling. I should have asked him about it, but I didn't. It felt weird. What if he was practicing for a play or something, or reading aloud to calm himself down? I didn't want to be the nosy roommate, so I let it go, until one night when I got up to use the bathroom and noticed a light under his door. His room was at the end of the hall, and as I passed by, I caught something strange. His door was open a crack, just enough to see part of his room, and he wasn't there. The bed was empty, but the talking was louder now, coming from his closet. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at that strip of yellow light under the closet door. It looked like it was flickering, as if from a candle or a small lamp. Then I heard something shift, something heavy, scraping slowly across the floor like wood dragging on concrete. The next morning, Connor acted like nothing happened. He was making toast, scrolling on his phone, completely normal. I asked casually if he was up late, and he said no, said he'd crashed early. When I mentioned hearing something from his room, he just laughed and said the walls in the building were haunted by the voices of bad plumbing. He had this way of deflecting with humor that made me second-guess myself. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe the creaking and voices were just echoes from upstairs or someone's TV down the hall. But the next night, I couldn't sleep. The murmuring started again, and this time I pressed my ear to the wall. Still too muffled to understand. But now I was sure it wasn't a language I recognized. The cadence was strange, almost like a chant. I didn't know if it was Latin or something older, but it gave me goosebumps. Then I heard something else breathing, deep, slow, labored. But it wasn't Connor. It was lower, heavier, like it came from something bigger. I backed away from the wall and sat on my bed with the light on until the sun came up. After that, I started noticing other things. He had locks on the inside of his closet door, the kind you'd normally put on a gate or an outdoor shed, and he always kept it shut, even during the day. I once peeked into his room when he was out and noticed the closet was not only padlocked, it had a chair pushed up against it too, like he didn't trust the locks alone to hold it shut. That was when the dread really started to set in. Something wasn't right. I told myself I needed to move out, that this place wasn't worth it, but I kept making excuses. Finals were coming up. I couldn't afford to break the lease. I didn't want to overreact. Then came the night I woke up to my bedroom door creaking open. I had locked it before bed. I was sure of that. But now it was open an inch, and the hallway beyond was pitch black. I sat up slowly, heart pounding in my throat. That's when I heard the whisper barely audible, like a breath sliding between teeth. Just a single word, closer. I scrambled for the light, flipped it on, and the hallway was empty. My door swung open, the hinges groaning softly, and there was no one there. The next day, Connor was gone. Not just out, gone. His bed was made, his clothes were still in the closet, but he hadn't come home. His phone went straight to voicemail. I called the landlord, who said the rent had been paid in advance for the next 2 months, and that Connor had emailed him the night before saying he'd be traveling for personal reasons. That made no sense. He didn't take any luggage. His wallet and keys were still on his dresser, but he hadn't come back. I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until late that night and broke into his room. I used a screwdriver to pop the padlocks off the closet door. My hands were shaking, and every instinct told me to stop, but I had to know. When I finally opened the door, it didn't lead to a closet. It led to a tunnel. I don't know how else to describe it. The back of the closet was gone, and in its place was a narrow passage, dug straight into the foundation, leading into darkness. The walls were dirt, packed tight, and the air coming out of it was cold wet, like the inside of a cave. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring into that hole. I couldn't see anything beyond the first few feet. No light, no movement, just silence. Then I heard it again, that voice, not whispering anymore, chanting, and something answered. I slammed the door shut, dragged the dresser in front of it, and packed my things within the hour. I didn't even sleep. I left before sunrise, left half my stuff behind. I didn't care. I never went back, and I never found out what happened to Connor. The landlord said someone else moved in a few months later. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear that voice in my dreams, calling me back,